Yeah, well,
Brilliant. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm not sure if this is repeated from what Chris just said, but I'll just outline a few details at the start. My name is Matilda or Tilly. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm going to be talking you through social media today and how to start using it for your small charity. If you can please pop any questions into the chat function, and then we can come to it at the end of the presentation. Chris kindly sent out a Google form before this session asking if you had any specific questions, and I've tried to incorporate that into the end of the presentation, so hopefully we can answer quite a few of your more specific questions within the presentation, but also within the Q&A. I believe we have quite a mixture of organisations here with different capacities. Some of you maybe only use one social media platform at the moment and are thinking to expand, and some of you maybe use multiple. So I'm hoping that I've been able to provide information that will help all of you and you can walk away with something that is useful for your organisation. Okay, great. So if we get started, hopefully this will work fine. Okay, it's not working. Brilliant. Okay, here we are. Right. So we're going to cover quite a bit today. Firstly, we're going to introduce the different platforms that are most popular for the nonprofit sector. And we're going to talk through why use social media at all. How can you get to know your audience on the different platforms that you use? And then we're going to talk through actually writing the captions. So what sort of tone of voice should we be using for the different platforms to get the best engagement? And how do you actually structure your captions to get the best engagement? After that, we're going to talk through imagery, which a few of you asked questions about in the form. So how to select the right images for social media, but also how to create graphics for social media too. And I'll talk through a few of the free software that you can use to help smaller charities to get the best and most out of social media. I then have a few slides on my support and advice on getting started with social media, a bit of information about further training that you can access, which is all free on social media and digital marketing. And then hopefully we'll have time for a Q&A as well at the end. So yeah, please do put any questions into the chat and hopefully we will get to them at the end of the session. Great. So starting with an introduction to the different platforms, the biggest question really is why use social media at all? Social media is a really powerful tool for small charities because if you have a limited budget, it allows you to tell your story to a much, much wider audience. And this can have huge positive impacts for your organisation across lots of elements within your charity. So if you start to be quite active on social media, you gain a reputation and a following, it can mean that you're gaining new supporters and potentially new partnerships as well for your charity. Social media is a great platform to raise funds as well, and also raising awareness of your mission and your services, for who you are, who you support, and what you do to raise your profile within your field. It's also a space for you to be able to engage with existing supporters and build a relationship with them, which also helps with building a reputation. And really importantly, it gives you a space to amplify the voice of your customers, your clients, and your service users. The majority of us probably work with quite marginalized communities, and so being able to tell their stories in their words the way that they want to tell them is really powerful for dismantling stigma. So don't overlook that potential of using social media. It's also a space to drive traffic to your website, which can really help with all aspects of your organization. And by providing a voice to a big organization or a small one, it helps to humanize you and build that reputation again. Social media also allows you to monitor how your organization is mentioned, and that can be the good and the bad, but it's good to understand and know your reputation, and then either you can celebrate your success or you can help with kind of solving some of the problems that people may be experiencing. So what actually is social media? Social media refers to apps and websites that allow for communication and content sharing. And there are so many different platforms out there, but most of them do follow quite a similar structure, which means once you've got the hang of one platform, you're likely going to be able to navigate another, which is great news for anyone who's starting out. So the majority of platforms will provide similar functions, and that would include a profile that is specific to your charity or you as an individual. You're likely going to have a home page, which shows you content from the people that you follow. You'll also have an explore page where you can find content from anyone across the whole world. And there'll be space for your notifications, which shows you how people are engaging with your content. And for most platforms, the way that people engage is the same. They can either follow your page, like your content, comment, or share it on their own profile. As I mentioned, there are so many different platforms out there, but today we're going to focus on the most popular used within the nonprofit sector, and that is Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So I'm hoping some of you either already use these platforms or are interested in finding out a little bit more about them, and that is what we're going to be focusing on today. It's really important when you're starting out to get to know your audience, and that way you can then target and shape the content that you share to make sure it's relevant and engaging for who you're talking to. And the audience on each of the platforms does vary slightly, so it's important to get to know them. On this slide, you're going to find data about the biggest proportion of audience for each of the platforms. So this will be available because we are sending the slides out after the session today. So I'm just going to summarize it for you now, but the data is there for you to come back to. To summarize for Facebook, you're likely going to reach a slightly older demographic, and by that I mean people who are aged 45 and over. And the content that you're going to share is probably going to be a bit more informal, a bit more personable and friendly. So this is for your good news stories, and that's what tends to do really well on Facebook. In contrast, on Twitter, you're likely going to reach a much younger demographic, so people who are 25 to 34. And often people use Twitter to find out their news. So if you think of Twitter as being the kind of highlights of your organization, the quick news that people can read and understand a bit more about you and what you do. On LinkedIn, again, in complete contrast, this was originally designed for professional networking. So the content that you share and the language you use is going to be quite different. You're likely going to reach, again, a slightly older demographic who are likely going to be in either management or upper management level positions. So this gives you a bit more freedom to be quite specific, use field-specific terms, and share that much more professional content on LinkedIn. On Instagram, you're likely to reach a younger demographic again, and the content you share really needs to be chosen by the visual content, by the pictures and the videos that go alongside the captions. And this is because Instagram is the only platform where if you go on your profile, none of your captions are visible. It's only your pictures. So the content you share really does need to be driven by the quality of the image or video that you're sharing. And that can really help you understand what to post on Instagram, whether this is good quality enough for this platform. And that's quite unique just to Instagram. So as I mentioned, once you start to understand a bit about who you're reaching on the different platforms, that means that you can change the language you use to make sure it's relevant and engaging for your audience on the different platforms. So Facebook, we just mentioned, was quite a personable space for you to show your friendly personality. And with this in mind, you might use quite informal language. So that could be abbreviations, rhetorical questions, maybe exclamation marks even within your captions. And you're likely going to be using quite exaggerated, positive, hyperbolic language. And it's a great space for you to share more personal stories, particularly customer case studies. They tend to perform really well. I put an example of a Facebook caption from BCHA on the left-hand side of the screen. I'm not going to read through the whole caption, but it is there for you when you come back to the slides. But I've circled just a few of the words to hopefully bring to life this tone of voice for you, so you can see the differences between the different platforms. So this post in general is about a Christmas tree festival that customers and colleagues from our Millennium House service entered into. So straight away, you can see this is pretty informal. It's not very professional content. It wouldn't be relevant for LinkedIn. And within the first few words, we've described our customers and colleagues as being lovely and our Christmas tree as being beautiful. So you can really start to see this very positive, exaggerated, hyperbolic language coming to life. You've used exclamation marks as well. And it's this very friendly, informal tone that is quite specific to Facebook. In contrast, on Twitter, you're likely going to be sharing your news updates, and this is a great space for collaborating with other charities and organizations that you work closely with. It's much more common on Twitter to share posts from other people. So if you are able to tag organizations, that really helps with making sure that your content is reaching even more people if they share your posts. So the kind of tone of voice and language you're using is likely going to be very concise and very clear. And that's because on Twitter, you have a 280 character limit for every post. And that's very unique to Twitter. No other platform does this. So it means you have to go straight into the detail within your caption, and you need to include the most important parts of your messages. Again, we've got an example on the right, and I've just circled the tag that we've used to show that it's great to include other organizations that you work closely with to collaborate on Twitter. And this post is about a horticulture course that we provide. So it's provided the bare details, the most important information about what the course is, how do you get involved, and when it's taking place. This is really about most important detail for your news update. In contrast, on LinkedIn, we've mentioned this is much more of a professional network. So this is your chance to share your industry credentials and share your expertise. The part of LinkedIn is really about building your reputation within your field and raising your profile. So it's likely that you're going to use more formal language, definitely using full sentences and avoiding abbreviations or acronyms. And the content you're sharing is probably going to be on the theme of employability. So it's a great chance to share any training, volunteering or job vacancies, conferences you've attended, networks, forums, things of that nature. And also sharing your kind of top level commitments and achievements as an organization. On the left, I have another example from BCHA, and I've just circled a couple of the words. So you can see that we've written out BCP in full as Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. And the general theme of the post is about a domestic abuse forum. So straight away, you can see this is much more professional, much more kind of industry based, and we're using terms like legislative updates. So it is much more formal and advanced than what we've shared on Facebook. For Instagram, this is your chance to be quite lighthearted, again, quite friendly, and the content that you're sharing is really led by the visuals. So if you can, use really bright, colorful, high quality images like the one on the right of the screen. And within your caption, you're probably going to use quite informal, personable language, maybe rhetorical questions, exclamation marks. But it's also, Instagram is a chance to influence public opinion, to really share customer stories and change the way that people think of your cause or your organization or your community in general. This is your platform to really change public opinion, and charities tend to do really well on Instagram for that reason. Again, on the right, I've just circled a couple of the words to bring this to life for you. So this post is about the opening of our Weymouth Community Front Room, which provides support for the community for their mental health. And we've described our opening as being fabulous. And this is not a term you'd use on Instagram, very specific, on LinkedIn probably. This is very specific to Instagram, which is that more positive, hyperbolic, exaggerated language. And you've used an exclamation mark as well there. So when you go back through the slides, you can read the captions in full for yourself and kind of see this tone of voice come to life. But hopefully just by circling those few words, it can be made clear for you quite quickly. Great, so once we've understood the sort of tone of voice, you can then think about how you structure your posts on the different platforms, because it does vary slightly. But I've grouped Facebook and LinkedIn together for you here today, because the structure of your captions is likely going to be quite similar. On these two platforms, for Facebook and LinkedIn, it's really important to have an interesting opening line, because this is the only lines of text that's going to be visible at first. And people will need to click on see more to read the entire caption. And these are the only platforms that occurs for. So if you can, try to make your opening line really interesting, grab people's attention. It could be through a question. You could summarize the entire post or provide some context. It could be through a quotation even. But just when you're writing a caption, really start to think about your opening line and consider making it as creative as you can. After that opening line, you're then going to have the main body of your text, and this is where you provide the details. So if you were promoting an event that you have coming up, this would be where you put the date, the time, the location, what the event involves, maybe speakers at the event, etc. So this is your main body, the main part where you can get most of your detail across. After this, you have what we call a call to action, which is essentially what you want people to do, the information that you've provided them. And this might vary for each post. So it could be that you want people to visit your website. You could ask them to contact a colleague, sign up to a course through Eventbrite, or share the post far and wide with their friends and family to spread the news. It really might vary, but try to always have some kind of instruction at the end. And if it doesn't feel relevant, you could still just link it to your website to try to drive traffic to your website. At the end of your posts, you're going to put hashtags, and this is a really important part of the post that is often overlooked. But hashtags are a really powerful way of directing your content to your target audience. And the way they work is, if I was particularly interested in mental health, I can follow a hashtag, the hashtag mental health, and then all of the content I see would be relevant to that theme. And that means if I'm passionate about it, if I come across your post that you've used this hashtag for, I'm much more likely to engage with it because it's something I'm interested in. So if you think of hashtags as a way of funneling your work towards people who really care about your cause, your organization, and your community. So don't overlook the power of hashtags at the end of your caption. The structure of posts for Instagram is very slightly different, so I'm just going to go through some of those subtle differences for you. On Instagram, this is one of the only platforms where you can't use hyperlinks. So you can't link to any article, your website within a specific post. It just doesn't allow it as a function on the platform. So what people tend to do is on Instagram, you have a bio at the top, which is your space to write a bit about your organization and include a link to your website there. So then at the end of your posts on Instagram, you would write, for more information, click the link in our bio. So it's the same logic of providing people a space to find more information and more detail, but the way that you word it is just slightly different for Instagram. And it's more common on Instagram to use a lot more hashtags. It's kind of accepted. So that's your chance to funnel your work to people who really care. We mentioned before that Twitter has this 280 character limit for every single post. So it's likely that your opening line is either going to be really short or it needs to go straight into the detail of the main body of your text, of providing the most important information that people need to know, because you just don't have the character limit for lots of context and lots of detail. Again, a way of saving your characters is by using hashtags within the caption rather than at the end. So if you have a keyword that links to your organization or the theme of your work, just add a hashtag in front of it, and that will help save you characters. So there's an example on the left of the screen where we've used a hashtag in front of the words climate change, and that avoids you having to repeat it at the end of the caption. Again, to save you characters, with the call to actions on Twitter, it's common that people will just include a link, but you don't need to add the words for more detail or for more information, because that really does add a surprising amount of characters to your post. So those are just a few top tips of how to keep your captions within the character limit. Great, so we've gone through kind of the different platforms, knowing your audience, the tone of voice and structure of posts. So now we are going to talk through imagery for social media. When you're choosing your images, it's really important to try to choose as high resolution, clear, colourful images as possible, because they really do make all of the difference to your engagement. If you have quite fuzzy, pixelated images, they're just not going to perform as well as if you have really clear, bold ones. So try to always choose the best quality pictures that you have. And something that's really vital to remember with images, particularly if you are working with marginalized communities, is that we need to make sure we have permission from your customers for their image to be shared on social media, because you don't want to endanger anybody by sharing their picture online. I imagine that the vast majority of you already have consent forms, but if you don't, I would highly recommend that you do start a consent form that basically lists where you could be sharing their image, and you have a conversation with them around, this is what we want to share the image as part of, this is how we're going to position our caption and position you as our customer, and this is why we want to share it, because we think it could help to dismantle stigma, or it could promote more people to be able to access our services. And then you really understand that your customers are happy with their picture being shared online. Most of the platforms are going to resize and format the images for you, but some of them don't. So if you can, I would recommend sticking to these dimensions here for you, and that will just help to make sure it's clean and the faces aren't cut off or text isn't cut off, to kind of give you the best chance of having a successful image for social media. Some of you within the Google form asked about graphics for social media, so I've added this in. I would highly recommend using Canva, which is what I use every day within my role. There is a free version and there's a paid for version. The free version is pretty good quality. You are still able to do quite a lot with Canva, but the paid for version does give you quite a few more editing functions and options. My advice for using Canva would be to upload your branding straight away as soon as you create your account. And this means that all of the content you create through Canva will have the right logos, the right colors, and the right fonts. And you can set this as default. So it's going to save you a lot of time with having to do this and recreate each time. It's going to automatically be within the right branding for your organization. I'd also recommend creating individual templates for each of the social media platforms that you're on. And that means every time you create a new graphic, it's always going to be within the right dimensions for you. And it will make it much easier if you create templates that have space for an image and then space for text underneath it as well. So instead of having to create it again and again from scratch each time, you have a template that you can go to that's really going to save you a lot of time in creating graphics for social media. If you also have occurring events as an organization, or if you support certain campaign awareness days each year, you could also think about having templates for that, which again is all about saving you time in the long run. As a software, it also provides lots of templates for you to choose from. And they do also have tutorials on how to use the software, and I've included a link there which will take you through to lots of the tutorials that are available for free to understand how to use this software. If you're not on Canva yet, I would definitely recommend at least downloading the free version and trialing it, but we use the paid version every day in my role, so I would highly recommend using Canva. I'm now going to go through just a few additional resources and software to help your organization with social media. Some of you might already use Hootsuite or have heard of it, but for anybody who hasn't yet, Hootsuite is essentially a software to help you schedule your posts. Again, there's a free version and there's a paid for version. With the free version, one person can schedule up to 5 posts a week. But with the paid for version, you can have lots of users and you can schedule limitless posts. And it's a really, really powerful software, which means you can schedule posts for all of your different platforms within one place. So it's saving you a lot of time. It also provides inspiration if you're stuck on captions and don't really know what to write. You'll also be able to see a calendar of all of your published content and also all of your content that's coming up, which helps you to stay on top of it. Within the software, you're also able to see all of your feeds, your tags, and your mentions for all of the platforms that you're on. So instead of having to log into each platform individually and stay on top of it, this basically centralizes all of that into one place. So it really is saving your time. And you can also respond to any messages for all of your connected platforms within this one space. Another really important tool that Hootsuite allows you is accessing analytics. So the data from your social media is all collated for you, and it's very quick and easy to export that data and put it into any reporting that you might do for your external communications. Again, Hootsuite provide really clear free training on how to use the software, and I've included the link there. So when you get the slides, you can automatically go through and find that training. But again, this is software that I use every day. It is really, really helpful and will definitely save you a lot of time. So I mentioned there that Hootsuite will provide analytics for you. And on the left of the screen, this is how the analytics appear. They're in little tiles, and you can change whether you want it to be in graphs or in numbers, depending on whether you're quite visual, and you can export it for your reporting. It includes lots of metrics, so lots of different ways of measuring engagement, but it's things like likes, comments, the number of shares and reposts, your followers, your mentions, and your tags. So essentially, it measures your brand awareness, your audience growth, and your engagement. And this data is really important to understand how your social media is performing. You know, what is working, what isn't, what do we need to change? And this will help, hopefully, mean that you can be quite structured and quite specific with what you share on each platform, which will save you a lot of time in producing something great that maybe doesn't perform so well on one platform. It means you can be very targeted to the different platforms that you use. I'd also recommend creating a communications calendar for your organization, because there's lots of different awareness days out there that are really important to combine your organization within conversations that are important to you. So it can build your reputation, it can connect your organization to themes that are important to you, and it helps contextualize your charity as a whole. If you do have a paid version of Hootsuite, this means you can schedule content really far in advance, so you can plan for these awareness days, weeks, or months. And if you are putting a campaign together for an awareness day, I would recommend researching the theme for that year and adjusting your content if necessary, but also making sure that you're using the correct hashtag for that year and that event. And now I'm going to go through a bit of the support and advice from the questions that were included on the form. So how to get started with social media if you have maybe one volunteer that can put time towards social media, if you don't have much capacity or much time, or you don't know where to get started, this is my advice for you. I would say start and focus on about 3 posts a week per platform, and hopefully that won't be too time consuming for you. But really, the aim is not to be led by the number of posts you're sharing, but to be led by the content. So really, you want to be sharing something thoughtful, that's thought-provoking, that's important to your charity, rather than posting just for the sake of keeping active. And hopefully, if you have that mindset, that might relieve some of the pressure for you, because instead of feeling like you need to post something, it's, do we want to post this? Is this going to help us as an organization? Do people need to know about it? If you do have a strategy, or if you link your social media to existing business plans or business goals that you have as an organization, this can really help to make those decisions quite quickly about what to post if you link it to something bigger as an organization that you're working towards. Try to focus on what you can do rather than what you can't. Social media is always changing, and it can be really, really hard to keep up, especially if you're a small organization, don't have much time to put towards it, maybe you're not very confident with using the different platforms. So it's easy to see other larger organizations doing really sophisticated reels on Instagram. But if you start small and you grow with your confidence, you can then get better and take on new things. So my advice would be to start with using just 1 or 2 channels. And once you get confident with them, then expanding to more. Again, you could start with just saying, I'm only going to post twice a week, and then you can build up as you get more confident. It becomes quicker for you to write captions. And you can also say, I'm going to start with only sharing images when we have good ones. And then once you get more confident, you could then maybe start with sharing some more graphics, which basically includes images and text as well. And once you have more capacity, you could then potentially work up to sharing videos. If you're really at the start of using social media within your organization, I'd encourage you within your teams to encourage a bit of a shift in thinking. So if you are doing a big piece of work that's taking a lot of amount of your time, think about taking a picture of the final product, obviously making sure that you have consent, but also reflecting on these bigger pieces of work. Would this be helpful and useful to share on social media? And hopefully that will encourage a different way of thinking and people get more used to the idea of social media. But it's okay if social media isn't the place that you want to share some news updates. It's not going to be the place for everything. But hopefully if you encourage this way of thinking, it will relieve some of the pressure and it will become a bit more routine for the people within your charity. Quite a few people asked about how to gain more followers as well. So I've put a bit of advice here, particularly for Instagram and Twitter. I would start by looking at who you're following. So all of the organizations and individuals that you work really closely with, make sure that you're following all of them who are active on social media. And once you've got that, then go onto the profiles of those people and see who they follow. And you can do this cycle quite a few times and build up a community of people who are passionate about your cause or linked to organizations that you work closely with. A couple of people asked about finding followers within your locality. So if you type your location into Instagram or Twitter, then you can find local businesses, local organizations, and maybe even influential individuals that are local to you and start to follow them. And that will help to build up this local community of followers. Something else you can do is type your cause into the search bar on Instagram and Twitter. And then you can follow people who are really passionate about what you do. It could be activists, it could be national organizations that are working towards the same end as you. And this will again help to build a community of followers who are likely going to engage with your content because they already care about your cause and about what you do as an organization. I put a note here, you might not be able to follow this process on LinkedIn or Facebook because this will depend on your settings. But if you can, go for it. If you can't, then I'd focus on following those processes just for Instagram and Twitter. If you're not on either of those platforms, I've given some advice here that will work across all of the platforms we've discussed today. You start at the basics, making sure that your colleagues know that you're on social media and encouraging them to engage with your content. So you're likely all going to have some form of internal communications channel. It could be that you use Teams, you could use WhatsApp group chats, you might use emails, whatever it may be, or meetings. However you share information within colleagues within your team or wider organization, use them to have conversations around your social media and make sure that they know that you're on them. Again, link your social media to existing forms of external communication as well. So if you have a website, make sure your social media is linked there. If you produce newsletters, include the handles of your social media. Any training that you provide, include your handles on the slides, posters, leaflets, business cards even. If you're at an event and you're networking and you're talking with somebody about your organization, if you hand them a business card with your social media, it's quite likely that they're probably going to follow your account. So these are just potentially a bit more creative ways to get your social media names out there. I've spoken a bit about hashtags. Again, this is a really powerful tool for making sure that your content is reaching people who care about your cause and who are likely to engage with your posts and therefore then likely to follow you too. But also you can be quite proactive. So if you work closely with certain organizations, if you comment on their posts in support of what they're doing or recognizing your role within the bigger piece of work that you've done together, their followers will see your comment and then potentially be likely to follow you. So it's just about raising your profile, being quite active on social media and getting your name out there. Everything that we've discussed today will also help with gaining more followers, but it's okay that it might take a bit of time to gain a following on your social media. It does take time to get there, but these are some of the steps that you can take to try to get there a little bit quicker. This is one of the last slides to go through some of the really specific questions that a few of you asked on the Google form. So somebody asked about TikTok. TikTok is a very unique platform where you're going to have to adapt all of the content that you would normally share elsewhere specific for this platform, because all of the content is video based and vast majority of the content is led by trends. So it totally flips the process that you go through. Instead, as an organization for Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, you might say, oh, what have you done recently? What event have we attended? What event has we hosted? What project have we launched that we could share online? For TikTok, instead, it would be what's trending and how can we make that fit for us? How can we fit into a larger trend that's become really popular this week? So if you have somebody that can dedicate a lot of time to researching trends, to understanding TikTok, to being able to create the content in the app, edit it really well, then I'd say go for it. But my advice would be, if you don't have capacity, to not use this platform for your charity, because it is extremely time consuming and it is very different to all of the other platforms that we've discussed today. Somebody also asked about free software that can support charities with creating content for social media. So I've included a link here to Q. I've not used this software before, but it seems as though it helps to create content for you based on algorithms, the content that you've already shared, your audience, and the data behind your engagement. So if you are a bit stuck for creating content, it essentially gives you 2 suggestions per day of posts that you could share. So feel free to have a look at that. It might work for you, it might not. But another way that you can get content if you're a bit stuck is if you do use Hootsuite, it actually does have an AI function. And some people aren't comfortable with AI, that's absolutely fine. But for some people, it might really help them. So if you are stuck with a caption, you're just finding that you're not able to write it, you can select the platform you want to share it to, the tone of voice that you want to include, and you provide the bare details of what you need the post to include. And then it gives you about 3 or 4 options that you can then edit and change. But it's really useful just to get even the opening line, the more kind of creative side of things that can take a little bit of time to think about on the spot. Also, there are lots of young people out there who use social media every day, and they might be able to support your organization with your social media engagement. I've suggested a site here called doit.life, where you can advertise volunteering opportunities. This is for kind of a bit more advanced volunteering opportunities. I've used it previously to get volunteering roles within social media and communications, so my experience is really positive. So if this is something you might be able to do as an organization, then feel free to have a look into that website. There's also a question around paid advertising and whether it's worth it. So I've included a link here on the slides that you'll get after this session, which provides lots of detail about paid advertising, because it really does range. It really depends on your organization, on your capacity, on your goals. So it's a bit too much information to get into today, but hopefully whoever it was that asked that question, you might find your information and your answers there. And then here I've just got a list of some further training that's all free for you to use if useful at all, to find a bit more information about social media, digital marketing. And now I believe we have about 15 minutes for questions. So I don't know if there's any in the chat, but Amy or Chris, welcome to kind of start us off with that.
Yeah, no problem at all. Thank you very much, Tilly. I'm guessing. Don't know, Tilly, if you can hear us yet.
Yep, I can, thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. I don't know if you want to stop sharing the presentation.
Yep, sure.
So in terms of the chat, first of all, there's been a couple of additional kind of bits of advice as well. So first of all, thank you very much, Tilly. Very thorough and covered a lot of content there, even for just an introductory session. So really appreciate that. Lorraine in the chat just mentioned about the for individuals with a variety of disabilities, sometimes it can be better to camel case the hashtag. So all that means is capitalizing the first letter of every word, just to make it easier for people to read who may find the lack of capitals more difficult. So thank you for that, Lorraine. And Amy also mentioned, so it says for hashtags, it's also a good idea to save your best performing, most used ones to a document you can copy and paste from instead of writing out every time and trying to remember them. I certainly would advocate for that, because you do sometimes find yourself trying to rack your brains again for which were the most successful and going down a bit of a rabbit hole. So yeah, if you can keep a record of ones you regularly use, that's always very helpful. Okay, so then to jump into the questions. So we've got a question from Stephen Robson, says, how do you set up a hashtag? So Tilly, I don't know if you want to take that.
Sure, yeah, it's literally when you're writing your caption, you just use the hashtag key within your keyboard and you write the keyword. When you press enter on space, it will come up in a different color to make sure that you know that it's gone through. But are you asking about setting up a new one specific for your organization or for yourself?
Yeah, that's right. I just haven't got a clue about hashtags at all. So you just saying use the hashtag key in front of a word and that sets up a hashtag, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then, so Stephen, if you wanted, so for example, I mean, it's difficult at a local level to get something trending, but if you had a particular charity or a group, so let's say CAN, for example, and we had this social media training, and I wanted to create hashtag social media training or something, and then encourage other people to use that hashtag as well, that can sometimes create a bit of traction, shall we say, for that hashtag, if you do have a bit of a network all using the same hashtag. That's why you see stuff like climate change, or for large events like sporting events or national kind of holidays and various things, they tend to have the same sort of hashtags being used. So you can use hashtags in two ways. One way is just to slip into the slipstream, I suppose, of people that are looking for that content. And then the other way, less likely to be successful on a local level, but the other way is to kind of try and generate your own recurring hashtag that might mean something for your particular group or charity. But thank you for that. And then the next one was from Fiona from Hope Up. So she said, can you upload branding on the free version of Canva? And I see that Gareth has responded confirming you can. I assume that's correct, Tilly?
I believe so.
Yeah.
The paid version at BCHA, so I'd have to look into it. But if you can, I would definitely recommend uploading your branding. It just saves a lot of time. But it will be quite clear on Canva about whether you can or can't. But I'd assume from the answer that you can.
Thank you. Thank you, Gareth, as well.
Yes. Can I just follow that up? I took the opportunity to use it for free for like a fortnight without paying. It was absolutely wonderful, but unfortunately I couldn't subscribe to it. And quite a lot of that, that included my branding, I wasn't accessible afterwards. That's why I asked. But if knowing that it is, I can probably find another way to get to it.
Yeah, well,
sorry, one other thing is that you can get free use of Canva, not just the free version, the full version, as a charity. But because we are part of a larger organisation, I can't actually access it myself, but some of the other organisations here might be able to get a completely free version.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you for that, Fiona. What we might do, if it's, I mean, Tilly's already alluded to, and we will send links out in the after event email, that there are various walkthroughs and videos that help you to get to grips with Canva. But potentially, I know that in BCHA, but also in CAM, we've got people that use it on a regular basis. So we could do a separate session if people would like it on how to get the most out of Canva and how to go through all the functionality. As I said, we'll share the links that Tilly's collated for everyone anyway, but that might be something, if people were interested, then please leave some feedback afterwards and we can look at that. So that's the end of anything in the chat, but obviously we have got a bit of time. So by all means, either come on to the mic or type something in the chat or give us a wave if you do have a question for Tilly or anyone else in the room, actually, because we have, obviously a range of expertise here as well. So a second to think about that. While you are giving that some thought, what I will do is I will chuck in the link to our feedback survey just in the chat as well. So if we do end up finishing a little bit early and you wanted to add any comments to that, that would be greatly appreciated, especially anything, well, feedback for Tilly and BCHA would be fantastic as well, but especially anything about future sessions or future content on this theme, because we can certainly look into doing something additional and extended if that's helpful for people. But again, I'll allow a little bit of time for any questions.
Already a question. I just want to say thank you. This is, I mean, a really fast run through it, but it's so helpful. I wish I'd had this sort of 2 years ago when I was trying to do social media for the first time, very unsuccessfully. So thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome. All the credit goes to Tilly, though. Tilly actually delivered a version of this training to CAN staff a few months ago. And after experiencing that myself, I approached BCHA saying, "Oh, can we use your skills and knowledge, please, for the wider sector?" So yeah, all the credit to Tilly and BCHA, and we thank them very much for delivering today.
Yeah, thank you. I do apologise. It was a very quick run through with a lot of information, but hopefully when you get the slides and you can go through it within your own time, it will hopefully.
Brilliant. Thank you. Well, if there are no other questions in the chat or anyone, oh, I'm just seeing some bits pop up. Lots of thank yous for Tilly. So if you can't see them, Tilly, thank you very much. But yes, I will, after the end of the session, we will send an email out, hopefully late this afternoon at the latest. It'll have a link to the recording, almost certainly a summary of the PowerPoint slides as well, but definitely all of the links that were provided in the slides. And please, yeah, as much as possible, provide feedback if you can. It supports both BCHA and ourselves to continue what we're doing. And if you'd like to see anything similar or on a different topic in the future, please let us know. Okay, all that's left for me to do is thank you all for attending. I hope it's been useful. And again, a massive thank you to Tilly and Amy from BCHA for delivering this and putting it together for us. It's been great. Thank you very much, Tilly.